Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Kevin Mahalik. I appreciate you guys tuning in to today's episode. We got a great episode lined up for you today, starting off with, that's right, you guessed it, coronavirus talk, leading off the top two segments. First off, we're just going to give an overview about what's going on across the country, across the world. Then we're going to transition into the relationship that the Corona is having with Major League Baseball. Details continue to be released day by day within the new agreement with, different causes for concern moving forward, as well as then we're going to transition into the prediction and preview part of our show, our middle segments, where in today's episode, I'll be previewing the Cy Young winners. I'll be giving you my prediction on who's going to win those Cy Youngs, and spoiler alert, it's a lot of the same names that you've been hearing and that you've been reading over the past couple of years, but I do give a few Darkhorse candidates, a few outside of the box individuals that I think with, the right, if the stars align, so to speak, could put together a nice run and find themselves in discussion for those Cy Young Awards. Then we'll wrap up today's episode with two quality segments at the end. We'll discuss whether or not another pitcher is ever going to win 300 games in Major League Baseball again. I'll talk about the last individuals who did it, as well as the current leaders, where they stand, who has the best chance. We're going to run through quite a few different names there to see if it's going to happen again. And as of right now, it'd be tough, just looking at the names and numbers. So you're going to want to stick around till that segment to talk about who you think is going to be the next one to 300 wins. And then we're going to round out this episode talking about my top 10 favorite logos, or the logos that I think are the best currently in Major League Baseball. We're going to have some fun. Whether or not your team is on the list, we'll have to wait and see. So stick with us here for the whole episode. But without further ado, once again, diving right into the national news, coronavirus obviously is at the front of every newspaper, the top topic to discuss here within every podcast as well. Global cases, or the global number of cases, has gone over 900,000 with over 45,000 fatalities. That is globally as well. Strictly here within the United States, we now have over 206,000 cases. This is as of Wednesday night, April 1st. I'm recording this late here in the evening for you guys, getting it out on the 2nd, and 4,500 deaths so far from the coronavirus. And you may be thinking to yourself, those numbers are quite large. Yes, as of right now, the U.S. has the most number of cases for any country in the world. We'll discuss that here in just a second. But for right now, I really want to talk about, as you dive into the numbers, 206,000 cases in the United States, and a breakdown by state. There's over 83,000 cases in the state of New York and over 22,000 cases in the state of New Jersey. And for those of you who are not super familiar with the East Coast, the New York area, obviously this is the Golden State Media podcast network, so you guys out there on the West Coast may be listening. Well, New York is right across the river from New Jersey. A lot of individuals live in New Jersey, live in Hoboken, New Jersey, or other cities within New Jersey, and either ferry across the river, drive across the tunnel into Manhattan, into New York. So New Jersey, New York can almost be counted as one, because it's, of my opinion, at least out of the 22,000, the majority of those have originated in New York City. I have a friend who lives in upstate New Jersey, travels into Manhattan to go to work every day. There's a lot of individuals who do this. So out of 206,000 cases, over 105,000 of them are in the states of New York and New Jersey, and this is obviously due to New York's population, everybody being so closely congested. And I was having a conversation. If you think about it, if somebody goes to the corner to the bagel shop, is asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing any signs, still has the virus that they're not even aware of, they go into this coffee shop, they walk to work, they're passing how many individuals going to work at the corner while they're waiting for the light to change, then those individuals are going to work in their office, and so on and so forth. And that's why all of the social distancing practices have been implemented, because of situations like that where the numbers just, they expedite so fast. And this is why you're seeing over 83,000 in New York, and that number is going to continue to skyrocket as symptoms, more and more tests, things like that are continuing to take place. So it's just a matter of the big cities getting everything under control. And this kind of relates back to my point where I was talking about how the U.S. had the most cases reported globally. Well, China, there was a report with internal intelligence that they believe China, is fibbing about the amount of cases that they were dealing with. Now, I don't want to say anything here that will get me in trouble either way with China, because I don't know the facts, but just based on the situation, based on the number, based on how the city of Wuhan is laid out, similar to that of New York City. The city of Wuhan is a huge city. For them to only have 80-some thousand cases total just doesn't make sense as we're looking this here now in Americans, as we've seen the virus come to the forefront. We know now that with the way this spreads, a number that low is just mathematically impossible for the style of living and the scenario that they are currently in. And there are rumors being had, again, business individuals through different podcasts, through different media outlets are talking numbers in the hundreds of thousands, both within cases and possible deaths in China. And, they're fibbing or not basically giving this virus the credit it deserved, has put the rest of the world behind the eight ball, so to speak, because China was downplaying it, and that's where it originated. Oh, so if it's only that bad in China, it won't get that bad here. Well, now that we've seen over the course of the month the peak continue to go up and up, as we have yet to kind of reach the top end of that curve. It's just, frustrating to kind of see that. And obviously from there, you don't know where the blame lies. Everybody's looking for somebody to blame in times like this. Whose fault is this? Who can we place blame on? Some say it's the president. Some say the CDC. Some say the country of China. I'm not here to put blame on any particular one. I'm here to just, I like to stay down the middle within the facts that I read online, give you guys statistics, factual evidence, and then give you my take on exactly what's going on. And that's all it is. It's my opinion. This is not a source told me or somebody on the front line. This is just me looking at all of the information, determining that, these numbers are not adding up. And this is why you see the White House projection of 100,000 to 250,000 deaths. And you're going, how in China did they only have this many if we're looking at 100,000? Well, I think you're answering your own question as you're continuing to dive into those numbers a little bit further. But, as we get further and further here into April, upwards of now 30 states have ordered stay-at-home orders for the entire state. The state of Pennsylvania just did so here on April 1st. We had a bunch of counties that were on lockdown, stay-at-home orders, but now it is the entire state. That list continues to go up over 30. President Trump has said nationally he still doesn't think it's time yet. He's going to leave that decision up to the governors on what's going on. The hot spots continue to kind of rotate and increase, randomly almost, but they are all in the big cities. The city of Chicago, South Florida, where spring break was just a month ago, just a few weeks ago. A lot of those cities are now kind of on red alert for what's going on out there as these numbers continue to climb. So in the near future, I know all of us, we're eventually going to know somebody who's affected by this or, going through some peril, things along those lines. But do your best out there to stay home, stay safe, stay positive, try to get a workout in when you're at home, walk around the block, get some fresh air outside. My wife and my daughter and myself, we try to get out, go around the block at least once a day, try to keep our sanity, because obviously our normal routine and our normal day-to-days have been completely infected and completely uplifted. And everything is new for everybody out there now. But, that's the latest update. Once again, don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole. I just want to keep everybody updated on what's going on just generally with the coronavirus, and then obviously transitioning into the rest of the GSMC Baseball Podcast here moving forward. We're going to talk about its direct relationship and how it continues to affect Major League Baseball, what they're looking at moving forward into the near future, the month of April, May, even into June and July, whether they're paying minor leaguers, figuring all that out. Like I said on the last episode, they came to an agreement on the service time, which was the biggest one, but now they're continuing to find those second and third layers on how to attack this and how to bring everybody back. But we're going to pause right now for a brief word from one of our partner shows here within the GSMC Podcast Network. On the flip side, once again, hang with us. We're going to be talking about coronavirus and Major League Baseball and some of the new correlations and relationships that are coming up there, keeping everybody updated on what's going on. Hang with us here for just a sec. We'll be right back. Kevin Mahalik, GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA, to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, and we are talking all things Major League Baseball. We started out that first segment talking about the coronavirus, giving everybody out there the update on the number of statistics, both internationally as well as domestically. There are over 30 states now with stay-at-home orders. Pretty much everybody in America very, very shortly is going to be under a stay-at-home order, and it's just an interesting time, obviously, to be in America and to be anywhere in the world, quite frankly. But transitioning here into the second segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, we're talking about the coronavirus and the agreement between Major League Baseball and the MLBPA. As more and more details continue to be leaked here, I can share them with you that recently it's come out that the likes of veteran major leaguers such as Gerrit Cole, Mike Trout, all those guys making the $36 million bucks. Well, they're only going to get $4,775 per day in advance pay for the first 60 days of the regular season during the stoppage. This will be a total of $286,500. Now, you're listening out there probably going, man, that's a lot of money. Okay, they're doing just fine. Well, for comparison's sake, the $4,775, well, that's only 2.5% of the $193,500 that Cole and Trout were lined up to make each day during the 186-day season, based on their $36 million salary. So this coronavirus break is costing them $189,000 a day, essentially, for not having baseball. But the fight they gave up to not have that compensation is now service time, which we discussed extensively last time, how they're going to be granted 2019 service time if they don't play this season. But lesser veteran players, they're going to be dealt out over the agreement, a total of $16,000, $30,000, or $60,000, down from that 286 that the top guys are getting. They've delayed the year till the middle of May at the earliest, which is why this is the next 60 days. They're going to be figuring out what happens then at that point, how they're going to break down over the course of the months as they move forward. But that's the starting tiers, $4,775 per day moving forward. And then, players with the salaries of minor leaguers of $150,000, they're going to get $1,000 a day. Those are the likes of Pete Alonso, Yordan Alvarez, Shohei Ohtani, younger individuals, but on major league contracts. So they're going to make about $150, throughout the year. And it's just wild how much money this is costing some of these players as they move forward. But one of the big discussions continuing through pay is Major League Baseball has decided that they are going to pay minor leaguers $400 per week until May 31st. So April and May, the next 2 months, they're going to get $400 a week, or just about $1,200 a month. And again, doesn't sound like a lot, but $1,200 a month when you're in the minors, you typically live with people on your team, so rent's only going to be $500, $600, $700. So they're going to be able to make rent and make bills with that money. Yes, they're not going to have a lot of walking around money or anything like that out there, but they're going to be able to pay their bills and make ends meet. Now, some of that $400, it will go down. The guys in single A aren't going to make as much as the guys in triple A. As I'm reading here, let's see. Major and minor leagues are on hold. Weekly minimum salaries for full season minor league teams range from $290 in Class A to $502 at AAA. So $400, kind of right in the middle there. Major League basically saying, hey, we're going to take care of you minor league guys out there. Don't sweat it. Don't fret. We're going to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all taking care of each other during this time. And, that was one of the big concerns, obviously, because they don't get paid as much as the big leaguers. How are they going to do bills? Where do they go from here? That's just, it was a difficult conversation, and I'm glad Major League Baseball decided to step up and ultimately pay these individuals. But continuing around now in Major League Baseball and the coronavirus, another big name or big situation that has recently come up is the Tommy John surgeries that were scheduled or are scheduled to yet take place. But, a lot of hospitals and a lot of areas are canceling all non-urgent, non-essential surgeries. So because of this, famed orthopedist Dr. James Andrews made the decision to temporarily suspend all surgeries at his facility in Florida. And again, nobody knows how long that these holds are going to be going on place. And everybody wants Dr. James Andrews to do their surgery, but they also don't want to wait 6 months for James Andrews to do their surgery, because these are 12 to 18-month recoveries. Add an additional 6 months onto that, you're affecting next summer, not only as well as this summer. And it's because of this that Red Sox pitcher Chris Sale, he had his Tommy John performed by Dr. Neil, I'm going to butcher this last name, Elatrice in Los Angeles on Monday. And Mets pitcher Noah Syndergaard, he had the surgery performed by Dr. David Altchek down in Florida. So Chris Sale and Syndergaard decided not to wait around and get the surgery performed. And yes, these doctors are coming under some scrutiny here for performing these surgeries at a time where only essential surgeries, because they need the masks, they need the material for things on the front line with the corona. Well, the argument that the players and these doctors are making is that these surgeries are essential to their livelihoods. They're essential to them continuing to pay their bills as quickly as possible. And with the stimulus and with the bailout, having this surgery for these players affects them like those things do the rest of America. So a very interesting situation to be put in, and in Philadelphia, locally, reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez was recently recommended to get Tommy John surgery, but now there are issues for him finding a doctor that both the Phillies and he is comfortable with, that is also willing to perform the surgery at a time like this when, hospitals are typically best suited serving other opportunities right now. So I I don't have a problem with these guys getting Tommy John. If they can get it. Honestly, it is part of their livelihood, in my opinion, and the sooner the better, as well as there's millions and millions of dollars on the line. But I also respect and understand James Andrews saying, hey, this is the communication from the governor of Florida that this needs to be shut down, so we're not going to do anything at this time, and we don't know when we're going to be back. So feel free to look elsewhere, but if you're waiting for me, it's going to be a decent amount of time until I'm able to get back in there and do the surgery for you. So let's see. Continuing around town here, a Japanese baseball player tests positive for the coronavirus. Japanese baseball, they were trying to get back. They were shooting for April 24th as opening day. Apparently they're still shooting for that, but the professional soccer league has since been canceled. Individuals were wearing masks, playing in front of stadiums with no spectators, and they're still having issues with positive tests. And that's one thing that concerns me with Major League Baseball is if you do come back and then 2 to 3 weeks into the season, you have an individual test positive. Well, what's the move then? Then you got to reshut everything down because they played this team, who played this team, who played this team, and now everybody is once again in harm's way. It just is a fascinating thing to think about. And until we have a vaccine, it's going to be a problem that you're going to have to talk about and discuss is, hey, if this happens, do we just shut this team down? Do we shut everybody down, just the individual down? What do we do here? And I'm very, very interested to see which direction they go, because ultimately yes, they have an opportunity here to be the only sport in town, the only one playing, depending on what the other ones are doing, if they're able to come back, where they're able to come back. Is it neutral site? Is it, brandly new built ballparks and not these huge complexes in these major metropolitan areas? What exactly are they looking forward to doing here? And that's the one concern, is that, yes, everybody gets back, everybody starts to feel good about themselves, and then 2 weeks in, bang, coronavirus comes back around, everybody has to shut down, and we go right back to where we were. And then at that point, you're out the whole season. If you come back and you get banged again, you can't wait 90 days and then start over. So in my opinion, you got to wait till you're 100% all clear until you even try to play baseball games moving forward. But that wraps up this second segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We talked all things coronavirus there over the first two segments. First off, giving you guys the updates on all the statistics, and then secondly, keeping everyone posted out there on the payment plan for major leaguers and minor leaguers. We're having trouble finding surgeries now for these newly injured players. The MLB players said they're open to wearing masks while playing, if that's how they're able to play and get in as many games as possible. Different players have said, hey, we'll do that as long as we can play. That's what everybody's looking forward to doing. So who knows when that's going to be, but hopefully if we stay home, stay safe, flatten the curve, we can get baseball sooner than later out there. But once again, we'll pause here for another word from one of our sister shows within the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Hang with us here for just a sec. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. Today's episode is April 2nd, episode 176 of the Baseball Podcast. I appreciate everybody listening out there. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, head to the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow the GSMC Podcast Network, the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Both are available. If you like the Baseball Podcast and you're into other sports or you're into movies, music, news, politics, whatever it may be, GSMC has a podcast available that you will love and you will enjoy. But here within the Baseball Podcast, we just finished up our coronavirus segment talking about the latest update on the agreement between the MLB and the MLBPA. And we're transitioning into now the preview segments here of the podcast, where in today's episodes, I'll be discussing my picks for the Cy Young Award, both in the National League and in the American League. We'll start out here in the National League with my top 4 candidates, and then as well as my other 2 categories of quote-unquote other and quote-unquote Darkhorse candidates as well that could possibly find themselves in the mix come the end of this year. But number 1, everybody knows it out there. It's not a surprise. Jacob DeGrom, New York Mets. He has won 2 straight Cy Young Awards. He's looking to become the first guy since Randy Johnson to win 3 straight. Randy actually won 4 straight from 1999 to 2002. Nobody's won 3 straight since then. And DeGrom continues to get better. He continues to improve. He's coming into his prime. He's the favorite in the clubhouse. He should have a better offense this year with the New York Mets because he was almost perfect last year every time he was out, and he still only won 10, 12, 15 games, hasn't gotten close to that 20-game mark because the team behind him wasn't very good, and he was still winning Cy Young Awards. So it just shows how good he really has been and how I continue to believe that he will improve on those strikeout numbers, limit the hard contact, limit the walks, the hits this year. And he's the favorite in the clubhouse, and, he's my prediction to ultimately win the award. But right behind him, Max Scherzer. Everybody knows Max down in Washington. He was dinged up a little bit last year, and he still made 27 starts, so he's getting up there in age, but he still ran out there 27 times last year. He finished first in the Cy Young, won the Cy Young back-to-back years in 16 and 17, finished second in 2018, and then dropped down to third last year in 2019. So if he's trending this year, he should finish fourth as he continues to work his way down. But I don't think we've seen the end of Max Scherzer and really his abilities on the pitching mound, and that's because it's just the health factor and the work ethic for Max Scherzer. Because I believe out there, and I've looked into this now, Scherzer, he's going to be 35 years old, okay, and he's getting older. He's throwing a lot of innings. So in my mind, being a Philadelphia fan, I went, oh, okay. Roy Halladay, very similar makeup, very similar mentality out there, work ethic, maximum effort every pitch. Halladay fell off a cliff in one offseason. He went from being dominant to just not having it anymore. He threw for 2 more years after he didn't have it, but you could just see from one year to the next something was major difference. And Roy Halladay, he fell off in the offseason from 34 years old to 35 years old, and that's the exact offseason that we are currently in with Max Scherzer. He will be 35, or would have been 35 right now when the year started, but just still waiting for that opportunity. So that is the one caveat in the back of my head where it's going, hey, nobody saw this coming with Roy Halladay. He was a horse, he was lights out, and then boom, very, very quickly, average major league pitcher, and it happened the same offseason that is this one for Max Scherzer. So I'm going to root for him to continue to be strong and continue to be at the top, but I'm just saying we're getting close to that where at the beginning of the year, give it a month, and if he doesn't look the same, it may have finally caught up to him. And one of the individuals who may jump him this year, ultimately to make him finish fourth, if he continues along the trend, is Walker Buehler. So Walker is the new ace for the LA Dodgers. It's no longer Clayton Kershaw. Walker, he finished 9th in Cy Young voting last year. It was his first kind of full season in the big, second overall, so this will really be his first year where he's extremely comfortable going through the entire process. And he's also playing on the best team in the National League, which means he's going to win a ton of games. Even if he gives up runs, he's going to win a ton of games. And that's where, statistically speaking, DeGrom was 12-6 with a 1-something ERA. And, you got those people at 18, 19 wins with ERAs in the 3s to 4s because their offense is scoring that many runs to where 6 innings, 4 runs is a quality start. And if you get the W, hey, nobody's going to be complaining. So keep an eye out for Walker Buehler, hard thrower, plus stuff out there on the mound, just, mechanics, location. If he can really dial it in and tighten it up, he's going to be one to watch and maybe one of the next best, the next great Dodger pitchers coming out of there. But number 4 here, and my 4th horse that I have is Jack Flaherty for the St. Louis Cardinals. And Jack, last year after the All-Star game, had a .91. Yeah, that's right. 0.91 ERA in 15 starts after the All-Star break. He ended up finishing 4th in the Cy Young due to this late push, but 15 starts, .91. People were surprised when he gave up a hit in the second half of the season last year. Not giving up a run, but just giving up a hit was like, wow, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? So he's a hard-throwing righty for the St. Louis Cardinals. He will continue to lead the top of that rotation, and if he found something that continues to, into 2020 here, and not just a hot stretch for a couple of months, Jack could find himself with Walker at the top of this discussion just due to new blood and kind of the fatigue of DeGrom once again. If somebody really stands out and pushes, they may be able to jump him and get over the top. But my others category, the 3 individuals I have there, Steven Strasburg. Everybody knows Strasburg with Washington. I just think coming off a World Series MVP throwing late into October, it's going to be tough for him to bounce right back and be a Cy Young style of candidate in 2020. Next up, I have Yu Darvish. Very similar to Flaherty with the Cardinals. Strong second half. Finally got healthy. Finally found himself once again in Chicago. Signed that huge deal. Hasn't lived up to it at all. Maybe now in year 3. We'll finally see Yu Darvish put it together a little bit, get back on top, get back to the pitcher he was when he first came over. And then finally, Clayton Kershaw. I talked about how he's no longer the ace of the Dodgers staff, but still a very, very good pitcher. And for a team that would win 100 games, if we were playing a full season, you're going to have 1 or 2 pitchers at the top of that list and at the top of the Cy Young opportunity. But my dark horse candidates, rounding out the segment here in predictions, Chris Paddock from San Diego. He was on an innings limit last year. Electric stuff, a ton of strikeouts. If San Diego gets over the hump and really competes in the NL West coming down the stretch and he puts together a nice run, he could find himself right in the mix for a Cy Young or for consideration. Next up, I have Luis Castillo, Cincinnati Reds. They're my surprise team in the National League, and obviously they're only going to get there if their pitching is good enough, and that's where Luis, his changeup at the top of that rotation might be the most disgusting changeup in the Major League. One of the most filthy pitches, no doubt, if not the best in the bigs when it comes to the changeup. So watch Luis. He'll stand out. He's going to light up the radar gun, a bunch of strikeouts. And then Mike Soroka for the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta, I said, going to win close to 100 games. They have a lot of young top-end rotation talent, and I think Mike is the best of the bunch, Soroka down there, and he'll be able to distance himself from the other Cy Young potential candidates if Atlanta does put together a hot stretch here moving forward. So ultimately, I think it comes down to DeGrom and Buehler for the Dodgers. I think Buehler puts it all together. I think Scherzer's going to be good, not great. I think he'll be right there getting votes, but I don't think he's going to win it. Flaherty, he's not going to, have that type of stretch again with an ERA under 1 over 15 games. And Yu Darvish, Castillo, and DeGrom. DeGrom's a nice bet at the top of the list, going for his 3rd straight. And then down a little bit if you want to win some money, risk some money. Think about Yu Darvish or Chris Paddock. down at the bottom to win you guys some cash there. But that wraps up this segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Mahalik. We're going to hang on right now for a word from one of our sister shows here within GSMC. But stick with us, because on the next side, we're going to be doing our Cy Young talk for the American League. Just ran through the National League. Hang with us. We'll be talking the AL in just a second.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. I appreciate you guys tuning in today, giving us a listen here. Do me a favor, share this podcast with one of your friends. Share it on social media. Click those three little dots wherever you're listening. If it's on Apple Podcast, on the right there, click those, share to Facebook. Let your friends know. If they're baseball fans, they will enjoy this podcast. Let your buddies know. Shoot them a text saying, hey, if you guys, I know you like baseball. This is our baseball group chat. Why don't you head over, listen to this podcast? Kevin's given quality picks, both for the divisions and now for Cy Young opportunities in both leagues. And that's where we're going to keep going here. Last segment, I gave you guys our National League breakdown. Jacob DeGrom, Buehler, Scherzer, Flaherty, others involved. And now, transitioning over to the American League, it's another usual cast of characters. It's just, I try to go outside the box with you guys. I try to bring a little bit of a different element, but I also try to bring you guys the truth and bring you guys honesty. And it's the same group of guys that it's been in years past. Number one, leading the group, obviously, Gerrit Cole, New York Yankees, finished second last year to number 2 on our list. In my opinion, should have won the award last year. He would have gotten my vote. Yes, it was very, very close, but ultimately I thought Gerrit Cole was a better pitcher out of the two guys who we're going to discuss here in a little bit. So finished second last year, could have been first. Ultimately, I think this is the year where he gets over the hump and wins that award. Now, I do think it could be a bit of a slow start for him. Obviously, the biggest contract ever for a pitcher. Everybody has read those headlines. He's also in the Bronx now in New York. It's a little bit of a different beast than the city of Houston. The city of New York, the infrastructure, the timing, all of that stuff can take a little bit of getting used to, and this could lead to a little bit of a slow start, as well as Yankee Stadium is more of a hitter's park than Minute Maid down in Houston. They both have their little quirks. The left field porch in Houston is similar to the right field porch in Yankee Stadium. It'll be interesting to see if the long ball catches him a little bit more this year, or if he's able to keep the ball in the yard with a guy who likes to pitch up in the zone. That's the one thing that is, if you do miss your location, it tends to end up in the seats behind you. But Gerrit Cole going from the top team in the AL to now the top team in the AL, possibly with his addition, the Yankees are very good. And that offense is going to score a ton of runs for him, just like the one in Houston did last year. So he should continue to be at the top of the list for AL Cy Young consideration. Number 2, the gentleman who won it last year, Justin Verlander. He was number 1 last year, number 2 the year before that. He's going to be right there again this year. He's 37, coming off of surgery. I talked about in the last episode how Roy Halladay fell off from age 34 to 35. Well, JV at age 37 shows no signs of slowing down. Yes, he's no longer hitting 100 on the radar, but he's still he's found how to make that 95 play and reinvented himself out there on the mound almost as a pitcher in Houston with all their analytics, everything that's working the top of the zone with the fastball, the bottom of the zone with the off speed. His spin rates are still tops in the bigs. Fantastic spin rates on multiple pitches, not only his fastball, his breaking ball. But coming off of surgery, 37, this coronavirus delay is helping him out. He may be around for the entirety of the season now. So there are some negatives and there are some red flags for Justin Verlander. But I think he's going to be right there. I think we're looking at another great year for JV down in Houston. The number 3 guy, Charlie Morton for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's going to see a spike in strikeouts. Saw one last year. I think that's going to continue into 2020. Does an excellent job keeping the ball in the yard, doesn't give up the home run, and that's what a lot of baseball is now, with all the uppercut, launch angle, spin rates, home runs. That's the way it's going, and so to be able to keep the ball in the yard is certainly a positive. Charlie's going to be 36, though, so that's the only thing. Verlander 37, Charlie 36, Gerrit Cole in his late 20s. Still the young buck out of it, even though he's got 6-7 years of run on his arm. But Charlie down in Tampa, Tampa's a solid ball club. They're going to be right there at the end of the year fighting for a playoff spot, wild card, potentially the division with the Yankees, depending on how the games go throughout the regular season. So those are the big 3. And again, that was 1, 2, 3 last year. So you look at some additions and who's the new name that's going to be thrown into the equation here, and there really isn't one in the American League, and specifically with the likes of Chris Sale, Luis Severino. They're both going to miss the entirety of the year with Tommy John. They would have been in the top 5 in my list in the American League, but now they're nowhere near going to be able to play. And then Mike Clevinger from Cleveland, he's coming off of surgery. He's hurt. I would have him at the top of the list. He still may be able to get healthy by the time there is baseball, but I didn't want to put him down based on his injury and not knowing exactly where he's going to be or what we're looking at, if that is the situation. In the quote-unquote others bracket in the American League, I have Shane Bieber, another Cleveland Indian. Again, if Clevinger's hurt, Bieber's at the top of their rotation. Kluber, you could probably throw in there from Cleveland. One of those guys you would think would have a good enough year to put the Indians in the playoff mix, as well as get their name at the top of the Cy Young conversation. Zach Greinke with the Houston Astros. Now that Gerrit Cole has left, Greinke moves up into that number 2 spot, potentially even the number 1 ace of the staff if JV is not able to bounce back. Greinke was strong down the stretch. He was good in the playoffs once again. Even though he's getting up there in age, he continues to fiddle, tinker, and annoy hitters with that slow off speed, working in the fastball, just knows how to pitch, and it is honestly fun to watch from a fan perspective. If you like, the art of pitching, you're going to want to tune into Zach Greinke because he's turned into a pitcher and is no longer a thrower like he was in his early days. And then Tyler Glasnow down in Tampa. Once again, Glasnow relocates from Pittsburgh down to Tampa. Tampa's able to unlock some of the talent that the Pirates couldn't find. That's a theme up here locally in the state of Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh drafts Cole, drafts Glasnow, and they just watch all these guys go elsewhere and dominate as they continue to not win in the playoffs and only make the playoffs twice in 20 or 25 years, whatever exactly it's been. It's just, man, Pirates fans are... they've been beat up here recently, that's for sure. So the dark horses in the American League, a few quality names here, in my opinion. One of them, Hyun-Jin Ryu for the Toronto Blue Jays. He finished second last year in the National League voting. Now that he's in the AL East with the likes of Tampa Bay, New York, Boston, Baltimore, I don't think we're going to have as strong as a year from him as he had in the NL West with some of those offenses out there who are not nearly as good as the AL East. Another dark horse candidate, Jose Barrios out of Minnesota. I think he is a good long shot for your money here. And Jose, he's got a wiffle ball curveball. He's got a 2-seamer that moves half a foot. he's got electric stuff. And as he continues to settle into the big leagues and learn and grow and utilize his body and his mentality and know, hey, I belong here. I'm a top end of the rotation guy. This should be the second straight year where he's the opening day starter for the Twins. And I see a good year out of Jose, especially with that offense. That should continue to be strong in Minnesota. They should continue to rake, hit a ton of home runs, win a ton of games. And Jose at the top of that rotation is going to eat up a lot of those wins with his pitch count and being able to go deep into games. It's another notch in the belt for him to possibly get into this conversation. And then lastly, Carlos Carrasco. He's coming off of, I believe it was leukemia a year ago. He missed out on some starts. He was in the Phillies organization for a long time, traded over to the Indians where he's established himself as a solid big league option, a solid big league arm. And if he's able to get healthy and get back and throw the ball like he was at some points last year and the year before, if he can put those together start after start after start, he's going to be right there at the end of the day in the Cy Young conversation. So outside of the box, Darkhorse, I think Jose Barrios is as good as an option. I think Justin Verlander falls off. I do think Cole stays at the top, just being with the Yankees. And then Charlie Morton, Glasnow, Bieber, Greinke, all of these guys kind of filter in as the year goes. But ultimately, I think Gerrit Cole finally wins his first one this year. I don't think it's close like it was last year with JV, two teammates. GC getting over the hump, getting his first Cy Young win for the American League. So Jacob DeGrom probably winning his third straight. Gerrit Cole finishing first off of a number 2 spot last year. And like I said, same names, different year for the Cy Young Award. But stick with us here. That's going to wrap up this episode. In next Monday's episode, I'm going to talk to you guys about my MVP candidates and predictions for the two leagues moving into 2020. But for right now, we're going to pause for a word from one of our sister shows here at the GSMC Podcast Network. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you guys about whether or not anybody else is going to win 300 games. If another starting pitcher is ever going to get 300 wins to his name. Spoiler alert, I don't think so. Hang with us. We'll talk about it.
Are you looking to get your college football fixed? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. I appreciate you guys listening today, Thursday, April 2nd, or the weekend, whenever anybody's listening out there during their quarantine. As we talked about in the first couple of segments, over 30 states are now in a stay-at-home order by the local government. President Trump has yet to announce a stay-at-home call for the entire U.S., but over 30 states and the majority of the population in the United States is under a stay-at-home order. The states of New York, California, Florida, Illinois, where all the big cities are, those governors have announced it. A lot of the rural Midwestern states with not as great of a population in such a condensed area, they're still able to kind of run a little bit smoothly now. Haven't seen the spike in cases that the cities have. And then I gave you guys a prediction on Cy Young winners for the NL and the AL this year. Ultimately, who I think it's going to be, Jacob DeGrom, as well as Gerrit Cole. No surprise there when it comes to those names. But for this fifth segment here, thinking a little bit outside of the box for all you listeners out there, as I was, going through different baseball topics of conversation, different headlines, I came across the 300 win club for starting pitchers. And everybody knows that 300 mark is kind of that special tier of only 24 total pitchers have won 300 games. It really is amazing. And the most recent individual to eclipse that mark or to reach that mark was in 2009. So it's been 11 years, and that was Randy Johnson. Before Randy did it in 2007, Tom Glavine, 2004, Greg Maddux, and in 2003, Roger Clemens. But since the turn of the year 2000, the turn of the century, those are the only 4 individuals who have reached 300 games. And a lot of them played a number of seasons. And now, the next question, like I said at the top, is anybody ever going to get there again? Oh, man. And Bartolo Colon was as close as anybody. He had the most wins actively, 247, although he's 46 years old and played for 21 years. Next up is Justin Verlander, who I talked about. He's 36 years old. He's got 225 wins. Okay, so he's been playing for 15 years, 225 wins. It's just, man, the math. And doing it here, 225 divided by 15, that's 15 a year. So he needs 75 more wins divided by 15, that's 5 more years. I think JV may have a shot. He's going to win 15 games for 5 more years, meaning he's probably going to have to play 7 or 8 more years till he's 43 or 44, which is going to be really, really tough, especially because he's starting to catch the injury bug now at the age of 36. He's going to need 7 healthy more seasons to possibly get to that mark. And he's really the only one that is that close that has a chance, because when you continue down the list, next up you got Zach Greinke, who's at 35. He's got 205 wins, and it's probably not going to be enough to get there. John Lester at 35 has 190. Max Scherzer, potentially 170 wins. If you could get another 10 years out of Max, he could have a shot, but Felix Hernandez, he's not going to get there. Clayton Kershaw, he's only 31 years old, but we've seen him dip here recently. I don't know if he's got another 10 years available in his arm. Cole Hamels, Adam Wainwright. And then that's where I said, okay, let's scroll down the list here and let's look at who has the most wins through the shortest amount of time, as well as age-wise has the most amount of time yet to go. And that's where, if you look at the age of 30, Rick Porcello, Rick's been moved to the bullpen and been back and forth, so he's not going to get there. Continuing down the list, Madison Bumgarner, he's at 119. He's 29 years old, so he would probably have to play another 15 years, 13 years, as he's won 119 games. Let's see, 11 years, 119 divided by 11 is 10.8, so say 11 a year. And he's got to get, oh man, where is he? He's got to get 180 divided by 11. That's 16 more years. I don't think Mad Bum's playing until he's 45. Steven Strasburg, he's 30. He's got 112. Chris Sale, Tommy John, he just had, doesn't look like he's the move. That's where, again, I go all the way down here to Gerrit Cole. 94 wins in 7 years at the age of 28. So 94 divided by 7, that's 13.4 a year. So say 13 wins. He needs 206 divided by 13. That's 15 years. So say 206, say he gets 15 wins a year, 13 years. Can he throw till he's 41? I think he may be able to. So Gerrit Cole, currently 28th in active victories, may have the best shot moving forward to get to 300 games. Just signed with the New York Yankees, who are loaded offensively, which even if his ERA is higher, he should still win a lot of these games due to the run support. He's going to need at least one more contract after this one to get close to that number. But winning those 94 games and quite a few the last couple of years in Houston alone, if that continues, if he's able to win 20 games in his 7 years, if he's able to win 115, 120 games, get to that 210 win mark by the age of 35, And then all of a sudden, bam, that's where Verlander is, 225 at 36. That's right where we were putting it there. So he's really up next, and he's really the only one. Dallas Keuchel, 84 wins. Again, looking at low service time, low age. Really, who has a shot? Sonny Gray has 70 wins in 7 years, so only 10 a year. That's the problem. These guys and their win totals aren't great. I mean, Jacob DeGrom, he's 31, and he's averaging 11 wins a year. He's not going to be able to get there in time. Kyle Hendricks just probably doesn't have the stuff. Odorizzi, a lot of these guys that are down on this list here, and that's the conversation is, man, it's already been since 2009 when Randy Johnson did it. And we know Randy and Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux and Roger Clemens, all of these guys were top-end performers even at the tail end of their career. And that's where it's not like, hey, they were just hanging on to get to 300. No, they were still bringing value and dominating ball games. And home runs, the way they're being hit, 500, 600, 7 home runs. Is it going to fall? Is somebody going to get there? Is anybody ever going to get 3,000 hits? Again, you know, the 3,000 hits and the 300 win club are kind of one and the same for hitters and pitchers in regards to that pedestal or that platform. But it's just fascinating. It's been 11 years. Nobody's really been close. CC Sabathia was probably as close as somebody has been. He was over 250 when he finally hung him up. But once again, next you're looking at Verlander, Greinke, Lester, Scherzer, and I don't think they're slowing down. I don't know if they get there and then become the 25th member ultimately to win. Only 2 guys have won 400 games. Only 1 guy has won 500 games, and nobody in the live ball era. The most wins for somebody in the live ball era was Warren Spahn, and he won his 300th in 1961. Next up is Greg Maddux at 355, as really, you know, and Roger Clemens 354. Those are your 2 in the newest era of baseball that have won the most games. But comment out there on the social media. Let me know if you think anybody's ever going to make it to 300 wins again, if you think Verlander has a shot, or if you're like me and you're thinking Gerrit Cole is the next guy up, and it's going to take another 15 years, and we're not looking at a new entry until 2035. We're looking at 26 years between Randy Johnson and Gerrit Cole getting that elusive 300 win. It was fascinating once I started diving into it, how I'm like, this isn't going to happen. It's going to be a long time, and my kid is going to be old enough to know what's going on eventually when it happens. But that wraps up the 5th segment here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We got one more segment left for you guys. The fun segment, the wrapping up the show segment. I'm talking to you guys about the top 10 logos in all of Major League Baseball. My top 10, both in hat form as well as logo form. I know sometimes they can differentiate themselves, but ultimately I'm looking forward to discussing those with you. But hang on right now for a brief word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows out there with the GSMC Podcast Network, and then come on back. We're going to wrap up this episode talking the top logos in all of baseball. Hang with us.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome back to the sixth and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Kevin Mahalik. It's been another wonderful episode for you guys out there today. We talked about the coronavirus, giving everyone the update on the global cases, the U.S. cases, how over half of the United States cases are currently in the states of New York and New Jersey. All of those, or majority of those, can pretty much be attested to New York City and the petri dish that New York is when it comes to a virus like this and its ability to spread very, very quickly within populated areas. So a lot of those New Jersey cases have come from Manhattan and the commuters to and from New York City, as well as Pennsylvania. We have a lot of individuals driving an hour and a half to work up in New York, possibly concerned about their health here in the near future. But we jumped from the coronavirus into our preview prediction segment. I gave you guys my picks for the AL and NL Cy Young Awards. And surprise, surprise, Jacob DeGrom and Gerrit Cole, they are going to be featured heavily into that conversation. But my dark horses of Jose Barrios and Luis Castillo, potentially Yu Darvish as well. Throw those in there. Those are some long shots that I think could get you some ROI if it comes to fun and games in whichever state you may be in. Here in Pennsylvania, we can have fun with the fun and games, and that's continuing to evolve out there. But here we are in the sixth segment, the sixth and final segment, wrapping up another tremendous episode. I wanted to talk to you guys about my top 10 logos in Major League Baseball. I'm a big baseball hat guy. Love the minor league logos when it comes to baseball hats. Here in the future, I'm going to give you guys my top 5 minor league logos, or top 10. I'm going to talk to you about the top hats that are available out there on the market that I think are top notch when it comes to the MiLB and some of the logos they put out. But today we're going to keep it strictly to the big leagues, the big league level. I'm going to do a little bit of a mix of nostalgia, kind of solid, old school, unspoken, and then loud in your face, kind of moving forward, which logos are the best. So starting out with number 10, Minnesota Twins. I like the Twins logo with the underline of WIN, win for Twins. But I also like the logo of the two guys, the two twins, quote unquote. St. Paul and Minneapolis that are there with the state of Minnesota. I like that logo as well. But the Minnesota Twins, very clean. Those white jerseys, again, twins across the front, underline WIN. A lot of people miss that. I think it's a nice little touch when it comes to the jerseys and what exactly they have going on there in Minnesota. So solid effort there. Next up, the Kansas City Royals. I just like the crown. I like the KC with the crown at the top, the baby blue, the royal blue jerseys. I almost called it Tar Heel blue, but I'm sure it's royal blue for the Kansas City Royals. They got the fountains and the city of fountains out there, and just the whole aura of the Royals, royal blue, the crown, the logo. That's a solid, clean, crisp hat. And I got no problem rooting for the Royals or rocking a KC hat. I would have had no issue playing for them if that would have been the case. Next up, the LA Angels. Angels in the outfield. Everybody knows that Disney movie growing up. That's what kind of brought you to the Angels. And, now again, Philadelphia-based Mike Trout. He's from South Jersey, right across the river. Diehard Eagles fan, diehard Birds fan, season ticket holder, so I'm even a bigger fan of Mike Trout, not only because I'm a baseball fan and he's the greatest player of the generation, but he's also a huge Birds fan, as am I. So let's go, Mike. Let's talk Birds. He was on the All-Star game. Go Birds. Love it. But love the A, love the halo, love everything they got going on there with LA, the Angels. I think it's just clean, quiet. The whites, they're my favorites when it comes to the Angels lining up that way. Next up, the Seattle Mariners. I like the Mariner logo, just the circle, Seattle Mariner. They got the compass on there. It's just, oh man. And then, Ken Griffey Jr. growing up. So that made me a Mariners fan. Randy Johnson, Jay Buhner. Jay Buell, I think what was his name at some point out there. Just Edgar Martinez. Whew, all of you 90s kids Loved watching that Mariners team and grew up with a Mariners hat, rocking it backwards just like the kid. I mean, what other way was there to do it growing up? That was it, man. The Seattle Mariners, even being an East Coast kid, I love the West Coast Mariners. I love that uniform. I was a big fan and still am today. Very clean. And this is one of the only ones where I kind of like the gray and the green as opposed to the white. I like the road Mariners unis a little bit more than the home Mariners unis. Next up, the LA Dodgers. This one, the home whites, the Dodgers across the chest. I also enjoy just the clean LA on the hat, the blue, crisp Dodgers hat with the white LA. You can't go wrong with it. It's just old school. It's been like that for years and years. It's one of the more known brands in all of baseball. You rock the LA hat. Everybody knows it's a Dodger cap. Nobody questions it. Nobody does, anything along those lines. So big fan of the Dodgers logo, their hat, just very crisp and very clean. I like the Dodgers. Next up, the Cubs. Chicago Cubs, not only the C, but I like the little bear cub. Yeah, it's a little bit more spring training that they get going with the Cubbies and the way they start rocking it that way. But I do like the red, white, and blue C, flying the W. The Cubs fight song I'm a big fan of ever since 2016 when they finally won it. I was like, all right, I don't hate this song anymore. And I dig the unis. I like it right there on the chest, the one side, instead of across the entire thing, just the logo on the one side. I think that's clean. And the C hat, the blue hat with the C, again, just everybody knows this is the Cubs hat. We don't need to say anything more. Just pure, Cubs, Dodgers, same world they come from. Clean, crisp, big fan. Then we start to get in kind of the newer, funkier logos for these next two, and then we return to the old school nostalgia, rounding out my top logos. But number 4, the Baltimore Orioles. Black and orange, I love those combinations. The orange and black Philadelphia Flyers. That's why I said black and orange for the Orioles, because orange and black's the Flyers, not the Orioles. They're the other way around, being a Philadelphia guy. But I like the bird on the hat. You get the white kind of background in with the black and orange. Just, great logo, kind of timeless, grew up on it. Love the Orioles, love the birds, love the aspect of it there. And then as well as another bird at number 3. And this is one of the hats I always enjoyed wearing. But the Toronto Blue Jays, that old Blue Jays logo, the blue that they've gone to now, they've kind of gone back to. They used to have that black mixed in there for a little bit, but now they've kind of gone recently back to the old school with the light blue, looking fresh with the Blue Jays hat. I was always wanted to rock one of those around here, and people are, Blue Jays fan? I said, dude, it's an awesome logo. Come on. I mean, how do you not love what's going on here with these colors? And the final two that I have, the St. Louis Cardinals. I just love Cardinals. I love the red birds. I love the birds sitting on the bat, as well as Cardinals being written within the bat and right on top of the bat. I just think it's very well done. You look outside, you see a Cardinal sitting on the branch. You just think about the bird on the bat and Cardinals and the STL on the hat. And it's just one of the oldest logos that I feel whenever it was done, it's timeless. It's very well done. Can't get away from it. Cardinals, Redbirds, big fan. Number 1, New York Yankees. The NYY. Everybody knows the logo, the pinstripes. There's not much to it with the jersey. I like the white jerseys with the pinstripes, not the road grays, obviously. Everybody knows, hey, it's the pinstripes. It's the Yankees, the NYY. It's the hat. It's a brand bigger than baseball is what it is. It's just the whole NYY is just way bigger than the sport and even the city of New York. Obviously, all the different rappers, industries, entertainment, they all rock it. So it's cross-industrial and just probably the most popular hat in America or the world for that even. But top 10, once again, going 10-1 here. Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, L.A. Angels, Seattle Mariners, L.A. Dodgers, 10-6. And then 5-1, you got the Chicago Cubs, the Baltimore Orioles, the Toronto Blue Jays, St. Louis Cardinals, and the New York Yankees. But that wraps up another edition here of the GSMC Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. If you haven't done so already, I'll ask you guys one more time, now that you've listened to this entire episode, do me a favor, head to the social media, Follow us on Facebook, like us, subscribe, give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, hit 5 stars there. If you're on Spotify, share us to the social media. Let your friends know all about GSMC and how we're continuing to bring you quality content, even while there's no baseball going on. There's no baseball games to talk about. We'd be into week 2 of the season. I'd be talking about exact games, situations, pitching. It's frustrating because now I got to talk to you guys about whether or not anybody's going to win 300 games again. But I don't mind. I love each and every one of you out there listening. I appreciate it once again. So one last time, do me a favor, subscribe, follow us on social media. But as always, I am Kevin Mahalik. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I appreciate you all. Thanks, and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.